another episode of Good Luck Vista. So tonight I want to talk about the concept of being the first Vista at your site. Now for certain projects, it may be like it just started and so like you're the first Vista that project's had as a whole. For others, it may be like your project has added on like another role or like a Vista position. And so for example with me, the HPU Vista project as a whole has been around for at least 10 years now. But my site, I am the first Vista at my direct site. And so I will be speaking about my experience with that, as well as like some suggestions for people who may be going through the similar thing. For example, this year I love my site, I do, and I learned so much there. I do think that being the first Vista, it was an added pressure for me because it's kind of like your site isn't aware entirely of what you're supposed to be doing, but your project is aware of what you should be doing. And so finding a balance in between of making sure like you're meeting your project goals, but you're also servicing your site and making them, aware of what to expect from you, as well as what you should expect from them. My biggest example of that I've experienced this term is with MLK Day. So my site, they've been participating in MLK Day projects through the university for years. It was just never a Vista there that was like in charge of, getting volunteers, putting out the marketing, collecting all the information that was needed so that the MLK Day project could be a success. So this year, it was me working with my project, like my host site, HPU, making sure I'm meeting what they are asking of me for the MLK project, but also still working with my site to make sure that the project that we're putting on, it still fits within them and it's something that they've done before. It's kind of one of those things where you don't necessarily want to change something that's already been going, but you also want to make sure that your new expectations that you do have are still following along those guidelines. And so I found that a little bit challenging, but I also learned so much from it because I think that this year I've really enjoyed being able to kind of hone in on my different creativity skills and working with my site on ensuring that what skills that I can bring, it fits with them. It's something that they can use, but also with my project, I'm still upholding what is expected of me as a Vista. And I know a lot of times people get kind of confused because it's like, what do you mean you're the first Vista? And it's like, I'm not the first Vista at like HPU. I'm the first Vista at Macedonia. And so after me, it's kind of the idea of, okay, well, when we had our first Vista, she never did this or she did that, versus now we have a new person coming in. What is this going to look like? And so definitely understanding that it is a pressure per se to implement a system so that way your site, after you, they're aware of like, okay, this is kind of what my Vista is supposed to be doing versus what my Vista isn't supposed to be doing, but I also still have room to hone in on what different skill sets they might bring. So for me, I focused a lot on like different creativity projects and then reaching out to people, but it may be another Vista that comes in and they're like, yeah, I'm not the most creative person at all. Like Canva, videos, all that stuff, that is so not me. But you know what I can do? I can teach basketball. I can teach piano. I can do this. I can do that. And it's like, okay, now we can change and tailor it around your skill set. But I still have the idea of like, okay, you still have these meetings that you have to go to because of Vista. Or this has to be done to meet our Vista guidelines or Vista target markets. Different stuff like that. So it's not just kind of like each year your site is just kind of like freelancing it, but they're in the same complex of, hey, I'm not a traditional worker in your space, but I also am still focused on gaining as much as I can out of this space as well. And I know it can look a little bit different depending on what site you're at, because a lot of times you may be focusing on different things. So I was Education Vista, and I'm just focused on like programming, getting more youth engagement in our center, and getting more community engagement as a whole, bringing people back into Macedonia. Now for somebody who's working with like food, it may be them learning how to farm because they're working with, you know, urban farmers, or learning, you know, the different food pantries and their systems, working with Second Harvest, United Way. All those things can vary. It's just one of those things where it's like your site has an idea, but you also have to work with them to see the perspective of your project. So HPU, you know, this is what their idea of what your role is supposed to be, and connecting those dots while also still taking as much of it out of it you can. I know, like for me, I branched out into public speaking. That was something that I had kind of done, but not too much. And so just learning that and having a site that was like, hey, we're gonna push you to do this, was really helpful. But also knowing that like I'm teaching HPU too what to, you know, say to future vistas about my site as well. So giving them an idea on like, hey, you know what, in the future, the next vista, they may want to do a town hall too. Let them know that it's already set up there. Like, this is an opportunity for them if that is something that they want to do. Like, this could be a good site. Okay, cool. Now when we're talking to people, it's like, oh yeah, we've already had a vista here, but they know how to do this, and there's still room for you to change it or tailor it to fit you as well. I'd like to think of it as kind of one of those things where it's like, you may be the first, and so it's either like, you're gonna, like, you did really well this year, and they're like, yes, let's keep doing Vista, or they're like, you know, this just did not work out. And so that is an added pressure, but knowing that you've done, you know, everything that you can this year to just give your full self and take as much of it as you can out of it, it ensures that not only your site is getting the best out of you as a Vista, but they're also learning as well. I think a lot of times, like, especially when working with like nonprofits, it's kind of hard to kind of do that extra buy-in because of just time and resources. And so you're kind of helping fast track that. So as they're continuing throughout their years, a part of, you know, a Vista program, it's just kind of like, okay, the next person rolling in, next person rolling in, next person rolling in. The system's built, the machine's going, we just got to keep adding on people, and that's where that capacity that we're building continues and doesn't just like necessarily stop with like one person. And so if you have like a project or something that you're working on, you're like, I know that this can keep going, or this can keep happening like every year, to have your site be like, hey, can you sit down with our project, you know, our project host, say, hey, can we implement this, like add this to like their VAT? Okay, cool. Now this is built into the VAT. So whatever the next Vista plans on doing, they know that this is the one thing that they have to do. And just keeping that communication and making sure that you're building on that foundation, I think can also take away a lot of pressure for you as well. Because it's kind of like you get to tailor it to make it how you foresee it should be in that position, but also you're setting something up to be very successful long term, and to make sure that it doesn't just kind of stop with you. My biggest advice to those that you are the first Vista at your site is, first off, don't think that you have to complete everything exactly like this is step by step, this is how it has to go. Know that you have the ability to tailor it to work for you, but also know that your site, they are going to be looking to you to kind of be like, hey, you have to tell us what direction you're going. They only know so much, they can only help you with so much, but they do know that from your host, like your project, your host, they are giving you guidelines too. And so making sure you're in communication with them allows your year to go so much more smoother and really allows you to build on that. I know sometimes it may feel like you're just constantly like, oh, I'm always doing this, I'm always doing that for HP, I'm always doing that for my host. What about my site? And it's like, okay, intertwine that. You know, if it's like an event, hey, site, do you want us to tabling here? Yeah, boom. I'm covering my host, I'm covering my site, we're covering like everything. And then also too, it's kind of one of those things where it's like you're lucky in a sense because your site doesn't necessarily know what to expect from you. They know a little bit from like your hosts, you know, telling them like, hey, this is what your business is supposed to be doing, but they don't know everything. So you have a little bit more room to kind of like wiggle and be like, yeah, I was going to do this that day. This is how I want to set up this, da, da, da. It can be a good thing or a bad thing. Don't take advantage of it though, but do appreciate the ability to have that. And also too, if you're one of those sites that's coming in and they've only had like one Vista, do know that it's not like oh, well, you have to do the exact same thing that person did because we've only had one. And so we're used to them. And you have to do it exactly that way. Absolutely not. 100% come in if they have like a program or something and you're like, yeah, we can still do that. Follow the program, but still make your impact on your site and still make sure you're tailoring like, hey, this is how I work. I know in the past you've worked with somebody on this, but I don't really work that way. Making sure that you're building on that and you're keeping that communication, it does take away that pressure as well. If it's like, they've only had one, so I have to do everything. You don't. Trust me, you do not. Last and certainly not least, make sure that no matter what the year comes of it, if you're the first, second, third, last Vista, you make your impact there. You make it what you want it to be. You make it be whatever legacy that you want to have on that organization. And don't worry so much about those titles of where you fall in the lineage of the Vista that your site has had. And so with that, I tell you, good luck, Vista.